downloadable content,
microtransactions,
DRM, pre-order DLC,
dislocked content, blind, stupid fucking fanboyism.
NBA 2K20, MyTEAM. So, you probably heard about this because gamer Rant has been living under a rock for a week, playing video games. Mr. Cash, nasty. I think I can get why he calls himself nasty. There's nothing more nasty than willfully promoting microtransactions, as opposed to the whole, it makes it look more like gambling. You know, to me, it really wouldn't matter if it did or not. Microtransactions in any form suck ass. Anyone that lays claim that they are a gamer, especially a fan of any kind of sports game, and you buy microtransactions or willing to support them in any facet that thereof, yeah, you completely lack any kind of capacity to even call yourself a fan of said sports. You're actually the disgrace as a gamer and as a supposed fan of said sports. That's just disgusting within of itself. But don't take my word for it. Take the trailer's word for it.
Alright, man, here we go, man. Sir, come upstairs. Downtown. No. Yes. I'm not gonna look. Oh, yes! You can't even guard me. Look, left, right, look, crossover, step back. Wet like water. You can't guard me. Look. We got him. Everybody, give it!
Rating board responds to NBA 2K20's MyTEAM trailer and gambling criticism. So we're just going to jump ahead to the point, because that's really what ultimately matters, is the fucking point. Although Peggy isn't applying the gambling rating to NBA 2K20 just yet, the statement suggests it may do so after seeing the final game. If it does apply the descriptor NBA, would lose its PEGI 3 rating in Europe. It would be interesting to see if the ESRB follows suits in the US. It launches September 6th for PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and PC. I find it kind of ironic that they're talking about this and then they're like, check it out, It's like, we're going to talk about this shameless activity. Well, we are also doing the nasty of basically advertising the fucking game, and you should go buy it because why the fuck not, right? Microtransactions. Oh, man. I get so sick and tired of talking about microtransactions on this channel, but c'est la vie. It's shameful to see a supposed gamer just get that excited about a game that has microtransactions. It's shameful to see someone that more than likely would lay claim that they're a fan of the NBA, and this goes for really any sports within of itself, would actually support microtransactions in a video game format of the sport that they ultimately like and enjoy. Clearly showing to you that it's really not about, even when we're talking about this individual called Cash Nasty, it's not really even about the game. It's more about the money. The same kind of mentality from the developers and or the publishers themselves. And I think that's what's really distasteful about this whole situation. But, you know, there used to be a moment in gaming where the worst thing that gamers worried about was basically whether or not the game that they enjoyed, the franchise that they enjoyed, was going to release maybe a sequel to a game. Maybe the developer that they enjoyed, whether or not they were going to release a game in general. Maybe that they were going to release a sequel to a game that they enjoyed, a franchise that they enjoyed. Whether or not they're going to be able to beat the next Mario game and whatnot. You know, those used to be what we could call small, but things that gamers worried about back in the day. Now, in this modern age of gaming, you ultimately have to worry about whether or not your favorite franchise or your favorite developer is going to dive down that rabbit hole of microtransactions and stand side by side, hand in hand with Electronic Arts. We already see that Bethesda has no problem jumping down that rabbit hole and standing side by side with basically corporate dicks. And I think that's what a lot of people ultimately fail to really see, is that, yes, you know, I sit here and I talk about the specific franchises, such as, you know, like Mortal Kombat, specific people, Sean Murray, Todd Howard. But it's not inherently like, oh, hey, you know, we need to jump on this bandwagon of fucking hate and spread it in their direction, because that really isn't going to help anybody. You know, there used to be a time when people actually respected Electronic Arts. People could openly and honestly say they were a fan of Electronic Arts at one point. And this goes for every developer and big publisher that is out there, whether we're talking Square Enix, although technically most gamers ultimately feel that in its heyday it would have been Squaresoft rather than Square Enix. But that's for a completely different video within of itself. I think you just get the gist of this. Is that, you know, there was a point in which most developers were seen with some kind of admiration and respect, but now we look at what they're doing to video games, how they're treating it, and a lot of them have either lost that admiration and respect, or they continue to just not desire it back, such as Electronic Arts and apparently Bethesda. You know, the difference, and this is something that I try to make mostly inherent, and this is what a lot of people fail to realize when it comes to whether I'm talking about a specific game and microtransactions, and, you know, this whole mentality of, well, if you don't like it, don't buy it. That's bullshit. It doesn't apply, because what you're failing to realize is how that's detrimental to the lifespan of the game. Case in point is sports games. You know, I didn't play a lot of sports games growing up. It was never really my forte, especially within video games. But there were the few rare ones. Most of them, ironically, were on the NES, such as Tecmo Bowl, Bad News Baseball, and I'm probably going to totally freaking pronounce this one, but it's like a Slalom, S-L-O-L-A-M, all right? It's basically like a skiing game, all right? That was the vein of my existence as a child right there when I attempted to play that game. I hit a lot of trees, hit a lot of rocks, hit a lot of people. Pretty much as a kid, it was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't go skiing because I probably suck at this. And then on the PlayStation, there was NBA in the Zone. Now, you know, when you look at the games individually, there's probably a lot of people that are like, oh, those games are garbage. But for me personally, I enjoyed them. There was something about them that really drew me to them. And I think most people, although the sports genre isn't really that popular as other genres, there are these random games that people are like, oh, hey, I like this. And, you know, the difference between the four games that I mentioned is that, you know, 60, 80 years from now, I'll still be able to play those completely. You look at a game like Madden or this NBA 2K, and it's going to be incomplete. Because at some point, the servers are going to go down. This extra content that everyone is just raving about right now, apparently. These microtransactions, these loot boxes. It's all going to be gone and lost. Meaning that we're now stuck with an incomplete game. And the difference between when I grew up playing sports game and someone else growing up today playing sports games is that the games I played will still be playable, as opposed to the games that they play may or may not be playable based on just how much bullshit microtransactions they decided to infest within the game. This is true for any type of game out there, regardless of whether we're talking sports. One of my biggest criticisms of Mortal Kombat 11 is exactly that. It's literally an always online game for in-game rewards, and yet a lot of the people that defend it just because they say it has the best fighting mechanic, it's like, who cares? It's still a dog shit game, because when I compare it to older Mortal Kombat games, that is the inherent difference, is that 60, 80 years from now, if my old geezer ass is still alive, I'll be able to put in older Mortal Kombat games and I'll be able to play them. Mortal Kombat 11, well, it's a may or may not. An incomplete, broken game. And that's one of the biggest problems when it comes to microtransactions for any genre of gaming that many gamers fail to realize and even rationalize. And that's one of the biggest points that I attempt to get across, is that, you know, this isn't just some individual on the internet who's irritated, mad, pissed off, occasionally using foul language and yelling to get his point across. It's about the future of gaming, the enjoyment of me growing up with a game, and I'm still able, even though the console is no longer supported, able to play that game in its fullness, in its completeness. That's why I inherently say that just about every sports game, every fighting game, every game in general that doesn't have microtransactions, hands down, is better than anything that they've come up with today, for that very basic reason, because it's going to be enjoyable for the generations to come. And that's what's really disheartening to see, is that a supposed gamer, a supposed NBA fan, would sit there and willfully support this load of shit. Because to me, it's just like, there is no passion from the aspect of a gamer or the aspect of a lover of the NBA. It's just some big YouTuber who, like the corporation, is more worried about the bottom dollar.